All right, everybody. Thanks for joining me today. We're going to get into simplifying and using the distributive property. And then the bottom section is when you do both. You use the distributive property and then you simplify when you're done. These lessons go really well together because when you're done distributing, you need to know what to do with what you've created. So I think they fit in together really well. And so let's start by just practicing simplifying and combining like terms. Now that means if you have 3 hats and then you have 5 more hats, now you have 8 hats. Same idea, X, Y, Q. It makes no difference. People get caught up in those details. All that matters is that you're combining like terms. If they match, you're putting them together. Now, the 7 doesn't really have anywhere else to go, nothing to pair up with, so we will just leave it as it is. All right, example number 2, we're looking for variables first. We're trying to match them up. This is one. Negatives I think of as owing, so you owe $2, you owe $5, so that means now you owe a total of $7. And any analogy works. Whatever works best for you to understand, I think that's the one that I would go with. Now when you combine the numbers at the end, you've got a positive 4 and a negative 7. So if you have $4 and you owe 7, now you are behind by 3. So you are at negative 7x minus 3. All right, let's get to this third section here. We've got an x squared we're going to throw in the mix. Shout out to all the middle school teachers who use things like triangles and squares and circles to help people figure out how to sort these things out. It's all good, whatever works for you. We've got an x squared. There is no other x squared in the group, so we are just going to write x squared as the first term of our final answer. All right, now let's get to the x's. I've got 5x, and then I am taking away 4 of those x's, which means I only have 1 left. Instead of writing 1x, I'm just going to put x. That's pretty customary. You probably won't get marked wrong for putting 1x. It is mathematically correct. It is also unnecessary. All right. When you look at the numbers, you've got a negative 7, you've got a negative 4. So if you owe one friend $7 and one friend $4, you owe a total of $11. All right, let's get to the distributive property. Usually when we talk about that, we talk about just making sure that the number on the outside gets multiplied by each term on the inside separately. And then if there's anything to combine at the end, if there were multiple distributions happening, then we combine it at the end. In this case, you've got 5 times 4x. 5 times 4 is 20, which means 5 times 4x is 20x. And then 5 times 2 is 10, so sure enough, you've got 20x plus 10. All right, now, people get a little bit more mixed up when we start talking about 3y times y. Whenever you multiply something by itself, you are squaring it. So y times y would be y squared. Now, in the case of this problem, 3y times y would be 3y squared. And then your second term there, 3y times 2 would be 6y. These cannot be combined. You can't combine a y squared with a y, so don't even bother. All right, example number 6. This negative sign in front, make sure you treat it like a negative 1. If there's one thing that people make a mistake on in this section, if there's one big thing, it's positives and negatives. They see the negative in front, and they might remember to make the 7x negative, but they don't remember to change the sign of the 5. Negative 1 times negative 5 is positive 5. So if you write out the negative 1 and put a negative 1 in front, you're probably going to be more likely to remember that it goes to both terms, as in it's going to change the sign of the first term and the second term. All right, let's take it up another step here. That means we are going to have to distribute the negative 4 into the z squared, the 3z, and the negative 4. So now you've got negative 4 times z squared. There's nothing really to do there. It's just negative 4z squared. Negative 4 times 3z. Negative 4 times 3 is negative 12. Don't forget your z at the end. And then last but not least, negative 4 times another negative 4 means you're going to have positive 16. All right, example number 8. Some people tend to freak out when they get a problem like this, as if they don't remember the properties from before. And they might not. The truth of the matter is multiplication is commutative, which means you could write that -2 in front, you could write it in back, it makes no difference. So this is a standard problem written in a different way just to see if I can stump anybody. I mean, that's really basically what it is, if we're being honest about it. So you've got -2 times 3x, which is -6x, and -2 times 7, which is -14. All right, last but not least here, this one doesn't look too scary. -9a times 2a. -9 times 2 is -18. And a times a is a squared. And then anything times 1 is itself. So I'm just going to use -9a at the end. All right, we're almost through here. Let's practice distributing and then combining when we're done. So 2 times 7x is 14x. 2 times -5 is -10. And then if you look at the end, you've got a +5, which is going to need to be combined with your result from the distributing. So the 14x is going to stay. There's nothing to do there. And then -10 and +5. You owe $10. You only paid back 5. That means you are still $5 short. All right, 2 to go. We've got -4 times 5, which is -20. We have -4 times -b, which is a +4b. And then just a -2 hanging out there toward the end. Looks to me like the 4b has nothing it can be combined with, so we'll just write it out. And if you owe $20 and then you owe $2 more, now you owe $22. All right, last but not least, this time around I tried to make the toughest one the last one just to see how we do. 2 times 3x is 6x. 2 times 1 is 2. And then remember what we talked about before. This negative is like a -1, and it is also going to need to be distributed here. So -1 times x is -1x, or we could just call it -x. It doesn't matter as long as we remember what to do with it at the end. -1 times 9 is -9. So we combine everything to get our final answer. This one is going to be a little bit trickier because we have a 6x that needs to be combined with a -x. If I have 6 of something and I take 1 of it away, I still have 5 of it. So that puts me at 5x. And then last but not least, we've got a +2 and a -9. If I have $2 and I spend 9, that gives me -7. All right, I hope that helped you get started. Good luck the rest of the way.